As data becomes more and more important to the daily functioning of the goods and services that businesses provide, so do business intelligence platforms capable of turning that very data into insights, reports, and interactive visualizations. A pleasant evening to all of you. Thank you for joining us on this exclusive session where we would be unveiling key insights in Power BI and debunking potential misconceptions concerning Power BI. So for the first time ever live on Zoom, the master of Power BI himself is here with us. He is an experienced specialist in business automation systems where he designs and implements customized automation solutions to improve business efficiency and productivity. His technical expertise, communication skills, and commitment to innovation is noteworthy to make him a valuable asset to any organization seeking to implement automation solutions. He was responsible for some of the groundbreaking discoveries and revolutionizing the technical landscape forever. So this session is all about clearing your doubts, clearing any misconceptions, and most importantly, clarifying all that you need to know in terms of what this is all about and and how it would meet your expectations, irrespective of what you're looking at in terms of your personal and your professional journey. It could be that you may want to implement Power BI in your companies, or it could be that you like to start your own business. So whatever it is, Power BI is indeed vital for anything. Well, of course, let's hear from the man himself. Mr. Rakib Ahmed, over to you.
Hi, Daniel, and hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this session. Hopefully, we'll be able to go through what Power BI is, what it's capable of, and what it offers you and your business as a whole. So yeah, let's get this question answer session started. The purpose of today's session is just to introduce you to what Power BI is, how it works, and also take some questions at the end, right? So this will be more like a lecture and question answer session. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
let me just take you through the introduction. I think we have 2 more joiners here. I'll just let them come in, and just 1 second. There it is. Okay, so let me just share my screen. I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can. Okay. That's fine.
Switch the, yeah, there it is. So basically, the purpose of today's session is to introduce what Power BI is. We're not going to go into too much detail today, just slight understanding of what it's capable of, yeah, and just a touch base on its technologies and how it functions. During the course that we are promoting here, we will actually go into in-depth on every single aspect of Power BI, and you as a professional or a student who intends on learning this skill, right, will learn how to set up the entire system end to end, right? When we think about a skill, we just think about, okay, it's Excel, right? It's similar to Excel. You download it, you use it, you plug data into it, and that's it. But Power BI is a bit more sensitive than that. Power BI is built to handle millions of rows of data coming from hundreds of different sources, which can become cumbersome if not managed properly, right? So we'll look at the data analytics portion of it, as well as the administrative part of it during the course, right? And how to best set it up, maintaining best standard in security and data analytics and visualizations. Yeah. Okay, so the content of today's session is basically first meet your facilitator, which is me, Rakib. We'll meet the students, but I think we'll skip the students part because uh, it's a shorter session. We'll skip the students part. Normally, I prefer getting to know every just single one of you and where you come from, what your backgrounds are, and how we can, cater the course to you in particular, right? Based on your past experiences. What is Power BI? Why is Power BI? A course outline and a bit of a practical demo and Q&A. I'll go into that. Yeah. Okay. So meet your facilitator. So I am Rakib Ahmed. I've been working with Power BI for the last 6 to 7 years. I'm a civil engineer by profession, right? But I got tired of that and started in data analytics first, right? So I started to develop data analytics, continued that throughout from 2018 till date, and evolved myself into a more robotic process automation and low code, no code software development, right? So that's um, uh, another side entirely to my story. But today we'll be focusing on Power BI. I started my journey with Power BI in 2018. And from there, I slowly started freelancing. I've started working with Briska. I've started working with companies from the US. Recently, soon I'll be starting a project with University of Tennessee from October. And there are other projects going on across the globe that I'm working on. One of my um, biggest achievements is using Power BI to embed softwares into Power BI and embed Power BI into other softwares, right? So it's very, very flexible. So you can have Power BI itself become a software, not only an analytics tool, right? So I think that was one of my biggest achievements and initiatives that I took for one of my clients, right? Where we were able to launch a Power BI report that behaved and acted just like it was a software, right? Okay, so let's move on. We'll skip this part for today, but remember, I want to know who you are, where you come from, what your professional experiences are, which industry you belong to, and what's your experience level overall, so that I can cater the course to you during the time that you're with me, right? So we'll skip this part for today because we have limited time. So let's get into what Power BI actually is, right? So Power BI is the leading self-service business intelligence tool, right? So the key aspect of this is self-service, business intelligence, and tool. These are three different paradigms that are very difficult or very confusing sometimes, right? So what do we know about self-service? So self-service to us is basically it's like a buffet, right? You have everything available, you pick and choose what you like. That's what Power BI essentially is. It has all of the tools and equipments that are available to you. You pick and choose what is essential to you. You can pick it up and use it for your day-to-day data analytics on a small business firm, or you can pick up the whole bunch and make an enterprise solution for, let's say, a multi-billion-dollar company, right? So right now I'm engaged with Petroleum Development Oman, right here in Oman. It's approximately a $20 billion industry, and it basically is the heart of the economy here in Oman. They have over 10,000 reports flying around in the business, right? Starting from a single team using a single report to directors using combined reports here and there. Yeah. So it's a massive system. It varies. You pick up what you need for your business case, right? It again, the costs vary as well, but that's the core essence of self-service. Then you have the business intelligence part. So again, business intelligence, the concept of it varies, right? For a small company, it may just be a small financial report, a small operation report, inventory management report, or even a purchase report, right? A cost benefit analysis report for even a small company. But for a big company in the oil and gas field or in the real estate field, it may mean something completely different, right? You may want to use machine learning, AI, you may want to use um, uh, various different levels of data sources. For example, the same company may be using Oracle, It can be using SQL, it can use Excel, it can use others databases that are available to it in its other systems, right? It can use SAP as well if it needs. So it depends on the size of the company and how many systems you have running parallelly. So business intelligence again varies, but the ultimate goal of business intelligence is to allow you to make informed and knowledgeable decisions, right? That's the basic purpose of that business intelligence. It doesn't have to be very flashy. It doesn't have to be very impressive. It has to be insightful. So you need to distill out of billions of rows of data the specific KPIs or parameters that you need to measure, right? That's the purpose of business intelligence. And ultimately, this is a tool, right? It's a tool. It's a tool that you need to use on a daily basis. It's a tool that is available to you. Whether you use it or not is up to you, right? It's a skill that you need to develop. It's like a hammer. You use it when you need it. Yeah, like that. Okay, so let's get a little bit more into it, right? So why is it leading? Why is it leading? The reason it's leading is because it's based off of Excel. So everything that Power BI is basically taking the core functions from Excel. So you can do, let's say, if you're good at Excel, you'll be very good at Power BI, right? It's that simple. The transition from Excel to Power BI is maybe a month, and you'll be good enough to start creating your own reports, connecting to your own databases, etc. It owns the Power Query part of it. It owns the formulas that you have from Excel, and it enhances and it establishes a much more vibrant data visualization capacity that does not exist in Excel, right? From 2012 till now, it has gone through major innovations and revamps, and the modern reflection of it is extremely good and extremely easy to use, right? That's basically what we're looking at. Okay, so how does it work? You have your data coming from any source that you need. Then you have the Power BI desktop part, which we'll be demonstrating today for you a little bit. From the Power BI desktop is where you create your reports, where you do your calculations, and where you establish your data visualizations and data models, right? From there, you have to publish the report to the online server, right? So you publish it to the Power BI services or Power BI report server, depending on your data security parameters. So report server is on-prem and on premises, and Power BI services is in the cloud. And then you can basically view it on your phone, on your mobile, on your tablets, anywhere that you have access to it. Yeah, that's basically why it's the leading and most trusted tool in out there. And it what are the competitors of Power BI? Competitors of Power BI is Crystal Reports, Tableau, and other similar tools. But why Power BI is leading is because one, it's a Microsoft product that is free to start, so there's no investment required. You can POC it, you can test it out and implement it very quickly in your business without massive investment in development developers or licenses or anything like that. You can just download it and start using it, right? If you have a Microsoft Work account. And the access and it can be accessed from multiple platforms. It doesn't matter if you're using a Mac or if you're using something else. You can still download it and use it, right? And it's constantly evolving and fully supported by a giant library of information that's available online, on YouTube, on GitHub, or any other platforms that you're going to. And it is a very live and vibrant community. So if you're stuck with something and you want to solve it, you will have a giant library of information for you to access, right? Okay. Then after that, we have business intelligence. And again, as I was saying, business intelligence, the purpose of it is basically to assure or allow you to make informed decisions. So something that we all agree on from a technical standpoint is business intelligence is a loop, right? You cannot just have a report, leave it for 2 years and expect it to give you the same insight that it did when you first created that report, right? Because your business is evolving, your data requirements are evolving, your decision parameters are evolving every single day. So whenever you're dealing with a dashboard or a report or data, you always have to come back to it every so often, every quarter, every month, depending on how fast your business environment is changing. You can come back to it at least once a quarter And at best, if you need it once a month, just touch base on whether the data you're getting in and the equations that you're putting into it, the parameters that you're using, are still valid. So it's a constant loop of understanding the context of the data that you're using, defining and redefining the KPIs, defining and again re-visualizing the data as you need it, creating and updating action plans, prioritizing your decisions, and committing to the execution, analyzing the results, having a learning loop, and then again going through the same cycle, right? It's a cyclic operation, business intelligence. If you're not always checking yourself and your understanding of your own data and your own company's parameters or your operations parameters, you will fall behind, right? Okay, so again, going into self-service. So self-service is like a buffet. You can pick and choose what you want, what is appropriate for you, and base your experience around that, right? So you can understand that much. And data analytics is again very, very simple. Identify your data source, identify where it's coming from, identify the value of it, collect it into Power BI desktop, clean the data, transform it to suit a proper data analytics structure or bring it into a proper structure, and then analyze it and then interpret, right? Using visualizations or reporting parameters. Okay, so let's go into what we will be going through during the 4-week course, right? So we have week 1 where we'll be going into Power BI. What is it? What are the setups that you need to do? What is the difference between Excel and Power BI? And we'll go through a case study every week, and we'll have a small test at the end, right? Then week 2 we'll be looking at the cloud side of it. So week 1 we'll spend more on desktop versions. We'll talk about what it is, and then week 2 we'll be going into cloud solutions, data models, DAX expressions, so data analytics expression, Power BI and SAP integrations, etc. Right? Week 3 would be more practical. So we'll be going into creating DAX codes, data visualizations, uploading it, publishing it, and understanding how to share the report. So whatever data or analytics you do or reports you create, you have to share it within the business, right? That's where we sometimes make a mistake, where we um, allow for in like very confidential or secret information of the business to be downloaded, right? So how to prevent data leakage, that's what we'll look at. And we'll go into advanced reports and dashboards. And week 4 will be basically looking at how to embed analytics report into various places. For example, SharePoint is a very, very good tool. Power Pages is a very good tool, but I think that's a bit more advanced. But we'll look at SharePoint, and we'll also look at developer tools that are available at your fingertips. We'll be looking at the Power BI architecture and more about the administration part of it. And we'll close off week 4 with a case study and a test. And we may take additional weeks for, let's say, if you really need it, if you want to recap on something, we'll add a week or two just to support you, right? So that's basically the course outline. So any questions so far before we go into a bit of a practical demo? I think we have a couple of questions coming up. 1 second. You can speak out, it's fine. Oh, there are a lot of people in the admit all, yeah.
So basically, I should say, if that isn't, simple enough in terms of understanding Power BI, it couldn't be even simpler. So this is, I would say, for those of you who did not have an understanding of Power BI, I hope this clarifies it. And so you did, I mean, in terms of, several questions being addressed by most of our students, Rakib, as in how Power BI is an essential tool for modern businesses, how can Power BI help a non-technical user become more data-driven in their roles? So all of that, so you just showed them the vitality of that. Thank you very much. So why?
Daniel, you're breaking up. Daniel, you're breaking up.
All right, can you
We
hear me
couldn't
now,
hear you.
Mr. Rocky? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Is it me or
Hello, I can hear you well.
Daniel, are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you well. Rocky, can you hear me?
No, It seems you're breaking up slightly. Just give me 1 minute. I'll just go out and rejoin. I think there's something wrong with my internet connection. Just
All
give me
right.
1 minute.
Yeah, no problem. I believe the rest of them can hear me, yeah?
Everybody else can hear him properly, or is it just me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So y'all can hear both of us, yeah?
I think we're okay. I think we're okay. I think I had a slight lapse in
Yeah.
internet. Yeah,
All right.
I'm good. I'm good. Let's carry on.
Yeah, that's fine. All right. So basically, as I was saying before, coming back, you did clarify, you did, give the basic understanding, especially for non-technical users, how vital and essential it's going to be. Because, if a subject like Power BI, it's needed anywhere. Sooner or later, anyways, with the advent of technology, uh, it's going to be somewhat a basic skill that everyone needs to acquire. So when it comes to organizations, Rakib, like, to have a dedicated Power BI champion, what does this role entail, Rakib? Why is
So
it
the
organization?
very okay. So for everybody else, just to put it into context, what is the purpose of a champion, right? The purpose of a champion is that person takes ownership of the system or product that is in use inside your organization, right? So for example, if you're using SAP, there will be somebody who's responsible for that, right? Coordinating with the business, implementing the needs of the business, managing the projects that are ongoing related to that, right? So that's the purpose of the champion, who will actually own the system, right? Own Power BI. So let's say if you need a new workspace, you go to him for support. You need his approval, you need his acknowledgement that, okay, I'm providing you a workspace. You need a new report, you go to him to and request for support, right? So that he knows what is going on relating to Power BI inside the organization. That's basically the purpose of the champion, right? Who owns the business. Not only that, the champion is responsible for setting up the governance part of it, right? As I was saying, Power BI deals with data, right? And data is vital to any organization. If, let's say, there's a leak in data for a big organization, that's a massive threat to its existence. So the purpose of the champion is to ensure that the business gets the support it needs in implementing and using Power BI. The purpose of the champion is to ensure that Power BI is improved, knowledge is shared, and trainings and engagements are happening all throughout the business relating to Power BI and improve the skills of the users of the platform. And then thirdly, establishing administration and governance around Power BI so that it's a secure and it meets the business requirements and supports the business rather than putting it in danger, right? That's the purpose of the champion. If a business does not have a champion, what happens? What's the problem with it, right? You can say, "Oh, okay, we can just use it on our own." What will happen at the end of the day is there's no ownership, right? If something falls apart, if something goes wrong, who do you go to solve it, right? Who do you hold responsible? um, who manages the day-to-day operations that are happening in Power BI, the day-to-day maintenance part of it? Who sets up these detailed audits that go into data, right? So a champion is responsible for all that, and if the champion is not there, the company will be open to risk and may fall into a trap of its own making, right? It's hard to hear, I know, but that's the role of the champion. If the champion is not there, that's an issue that needs to be addressed immediately, right? um okay, is that clear? Do you need any clarifications on that? Anyone? Guys, you can talk, you can talk to me.
Yeah, it was clear
That's
to
the
me.
purpose
So
of
how
this.
about the rest of the students? Please, once again, this session is dedicated to all of you. So y'all can always voice out any question that you may have, any clarifications. Because Rakib, we get plenty of calls, from students. We have over 600 students in our database, and they always have the same set of questions. So these particular questions on Iraqi, I have taken them and we are debunking and we are clarifying these particular questions that most of these students have. But apart from that, there could always be other questions that you would, or some certain doubt that might be going through your minds. So please do voice it out and please do clarify it, because this is a very rare opportunity and it's an exclusive session. And it's not every time Rakib would be able to take his time off and, to have this session. So please do make use of this time wisely. Okay, so coming back, Rakib, yeah, it was crystal clear to me in terms of the Power BI champion. So when it comes to being a business leader, as I am sure, most of some of our students right here, they no doubt would want to be a business leader someday. So how can the course help or benefit business leaders and sponsors in terms of maximizing their investments in Power BI?
Right. So generally, if you go online, you will see videos are available, resources are available that teach you Power BI in a very, very short amount of time. You can basically learn Power BI over the weekend if you want, right? Spend 8 hours a day just going through Power BI, you will learn it, right? That's fair. You can learn it. But setting it up, establishing it, and making sure that the best practices are followed throughout, and somebody setting up the entire governance aspect of it, that is something I think is not available everywhere. People do talk about it here and there, but it's not available. The people do not address the risks of using Power BI, and how setting it up incorrectly may lead to damage rather than benefits, right? So not only are we going to teach you how to use Power BI desktop and how to create the data analytics, dashboards, reports, etc., we'll also be focusing on the 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 governance and the security aspect of it, using which this knowledge, when you gain it, you can actually go back to your business leaders and say, wait here, listen, I am fluent in Power BI. I know how to set it up. The primary part of it, of course, this is not a fully advanced course because that will take about 2 months, 3 months to do. But at least you know what the basics are, and you can communicate back to your business. Look here, I know what the pitfalls are of using Power BI. I know what the benefits are of using Power BI. I know what the best practices are of setting the systems up. Let's start in a way that minimizes the risk and maximizes the benefit, right? I think if you can say that back to your business would be more likely to accept Power BI than just you saying, okay, let's use Power BI, it's a good tool, right? If you emphasize on the additional points that I've just mentioned, it'll be far more accepted, right? Business abhors risk, loves benefits, right? So that's what we are gearing it for. Now, how does it benefit you personally? If you do it right, it brings massive value to the business, and it gives confidence to the business owners to trust you with more important projects, right, going forward. So you're not only bringing value to the business, you're bringing value to yourself, and it's a win-win situation for both. So both of you can grow together. Does that make sense? I hope it's clear.
Yeah, it was clear to me, Rocky, because clear as the moon. So
So
how about the rest
guys,
of the
please
students?
speak up because I'm worried that everybody's quiet. I'm just worried that it's going over your heads. Come on. Somebody say something.
Okay, so now it is time, Rakib. So
Yeah,
we have received, 76% of questions. Uh,
right.
One more, some of the students from, especially from those in a non-technical client base. So they have raised a question saying, I am not an IT professional, or I
Right.
could be in a capacity where I am not versatile in Excel. So why should I choose Power BI, or what is the use of Power BI for me?
Very good question, actually. This is very interesting if you think about it. Um, see, let's make it a bit more simpler, right? If you're not an IT professional, if you're not, let's say, well versed in IT infrastructure management, etc., and but you want to explore it, right? You're interested in it, you're curious about it. where would you start? You would start with Excel, right? The first thing that you learn, the first skill that we all tend to learn when we move into a company is Excel, right? Why do we learn it actually? We learn it to survive in the industry, primarily. I know when I learned it, I just wanted to be, just do my work faster, to be honest, uh, and impress my bosses. That's what I wanted to do, and survive. But survival is not the goal, is it, in life? Survival is not the goal. The goal is to thrive. How do you thrive? It can be any industry. So see, if even if you're not an IT professional, you're still investing in developing your skills in the industry that you're in now, or in the role that you're in now. How do you go above and beyond? Where you The way you go above and beyond is you incorporate skills into yourself that complement your other skills or other decision making capacities, right? That's where Power BI comes in. It doesn't really have to be Power BI, to be honest. For you to grow in your career, it doesn't really have to be Power BI. It can be any kind of skill. If you're an architect, learning AutoCAD, or let's say Canva, or let's say other softwares like Photoshop, um, Premiere Pro, video editing. These are also skills that people learn to grow, right? Um, at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. We want to grow. So learning Power BI will add value to you. How you utilize Power BI in your day-to-day efforts or your work will actually out determine how successful you are with it, right? So even if you're not an IT professional, there's no harm in learning if it serves your purpose, if you want to add value to your company. Does that make sense? It's a more like a philosophical question than a technical one, but that's what it ultimately boils down to. Do you want a new skill in your repertoire, right? Do you want it or not? That's the question. And how do you utilize it? Do you want to take up a bigger responsibility in your organization, in your department, or even your team, and say, okay, look, I can do this more, or I can do this better than we could before. Let's invest in it, and ultimately let's invest in me, right? So it's a question of where you want to go with it, how you want to develop your career. If data analytics is not to your liking, that's fair. That's fair. No point in beating around the bush, but that's all right. It's perfectly all right. But having a skill, learning a skill, and aiming for better and higher status, or better education, or better standing in your organization is always a good thing. Yeah, so that's my answer to that. And it's easy to learn, so you can get started with it, and you don't really have to be an IT professional to learn it, to be honest. Like, I'm a civil engineer, right? What did I know about Power BI? I started it, continued with it, implemented it, practiced it, and now here I am. I'm now away from civil engineering, now more into IT and software development. Who knew? It's a gateway to bigger and better things, to be honest. Yeah.
There you go, guys. There you go, students. So if you haven't heard from him already, so it is never too late to, it might be a career transition. It could be even implementing your own business. And also let me add on to that, Rocky, but this is one skill. Having a skill in Power BI is definitely setting you up in terms of matching the demand of employers of a globalized context, because it is an international market. It's a global arena. It is not just geared, in terms of Sri Lanka. It is a global thing. So you could always adapt it irrespective of where you are or what you are doing. If you think about it closely, and if you play your cards well, if you are smart enough, you will know how important this is, because there is always room for revolutionizing whatever business or whatever circumstance you're in if you adapt this skill to your toolkit. So coming back
So,
in terms
Daniel,
of,
one second, just to stop you. We have a question from Hajara
all
in the
right,
direct messages. So Hajara is asking for what are the risks we should look out for as we use Power BI, right? So if you look at my screen, or if you see the dashboard that I have available here, the first primary skill or risk that we have is wrong calculations. That sounds funny, right? Wrong calculations. That's the primary risk you have, giving wrong insights, right? If you're in a hurry to create something, if you're too too pumped up and want to do it fast, you may give the wrong insights to the business. That's the number one risk, right? Second risk that we have is data sharing, right? Sharing with people that don't need that data or don't have access to that data, setting up the right protocols, right? If you don't set that up right, you may expose your data to people that don't need to see it, right? Data is money, data is business insights, and data is power for a manager, for a director, and the entire business. You don't want to expose that to people that don't need it, right? These are the biggest risks that you can have using Power BI. If you don't get the right insights or you make the wrong calculations and promote that as the right insights, you'll be steering the business in the completely wrong direction. Number one, and the second one is to share it with people that don't need to view it. Yeah. So Hajara, I think that should answer your question. So remember these two: one, wrong insights, wrong calculations; number two, sharing with the wrong people. Right? Okay, let's carry on.
And
Guys,
also
feel free to ask
to add on
questions.
to that, yeah, that's a really good question. I have to agree, Rakib. And also to add on to that, when it comes to Power BI, as what Hajara said, the reason for these incorrect calculations is a lack of being versatile in Power BI, because, and that is why it is even more important to have the proper training in terms of curtailing and controlling these particular, errors that one makes in Power BI. So with the proper training, you're sure to do it the correct way and to use it to your own gain. Because without the proper gaining, because I'm sure there are some students, Rakib, they think they just watch some random video of the internet and they just take it and they adapt it. And that person in turn has seen it from someone else. So it is a circuit, it's a circle that goes on. But the fact is that no one knows from where that information is coming from, and the chances are it could not be correct. So that is why it is very important, is extremely important to get the right training from the right person. So when it comes now, when it comes to the businesses, as you previously spoke of, Rakib, business DBs and sponsors in terms of maximizing the investments. Coming to the challenges in that context, Rakib, when adopting Power BI, so how would this course help overcome those, especially in terms of contributing to a company's overall digital transformation strategy?
So when you first implement or incorporate Power BI into the business, what will happen? So, like for example, I'll give you more of a practical example. You have a syllabus, right? You have a syllabus at the beginning of each year. You know what you have to study, and you know what you have to study when, right? You have a first term syllabus, you have a second term syllabus, you have a third term and a fourth term syllabus at the beginning of the year, right? Good students would actually map out the entire year, prepare from day one, and go through the entire syllabus with their parents or teachers, and then start studying from day one, right? Backbenchers like me, we would wait to the last moment to address the issue, right? I remember in my university days, I would not study until the last week when the exams are about to start, right? And I would be cramming, I'd be running around, I'd be stressed, I'd be having panic attacks. I wouldn't eat properly. I wouldn't shower. I wouldn't work. Anything. Like it would be a non-stop slog to that milestone, right? To that exam date. Why do I say this? It's good to have a roadmap, right? Of what your implementation or your journey with Power BI would look like. So let's say when you start using the Power BI report on your or for yourself or as a POC, proof of concept, what would that look like? When it gets adopted by, let's say, one department, what does that look like? When it gets adopted by a directorate, right? So for example, HR the entire directorate or HR director has decided, okay, I want it in administration, I want it in HR, I want it in recruitment, I want it in payroll, I want it in, let's say, learning and development. I want Power BI implemented throughout the band. What does that look like? What are the pitfalls of that? What are the challenges of that? What are the administrative nuances that you have to address in that scenario? Then let's say the HR director is very happy. Now the finance director wants it. Now the finance director, when he wants it, he wants the data from HR to come to finance. And then how does that interact? So knowing these scenarios, having a syllabus of what the journey of implementing Power BI from one person to one department, to one directorate, to two directorates, to all directorates look like, right, will serve you better and keep you grounded and allow you to be that topper who starts from day one, rather than me, who's a backbencher who had to learn everything by getting kicked every single time, right? So, because I'm a self-taught professional, right? So I had to learn and discover ways of doing things that suited, let's say, a particular project, then a particular organization, and then so on and so forth. So that insight I can give you now and give you that roadmap of what are the challenges, risks, what are the techniques you have to apply, what are the communications you have to establish, what are the governance you have to establish, going through that entire journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, Rocky. I hope it makes sense. So that answer was really deep, and it was really insightful. So I hope the rest of the students understood the answer. So please, if there is something that y'all don't understand, please do let us know so we could explain it in more simpler terms. So right now, Rakib, so from my end, from all the questions that have come so far, these were the most covering the non-technical aspect of it. So these were the most prominent ones that were raised from our students. If there are any other questions apart from these, please do let us know, students, because now that we have given the milk, it is time for us to tackle the meat of Power BI, which is the technical questions. So the technical questions are a lot, and it is mostly the technical questions now that we will be tackling. And these as well of the most prominent ones that have been raised for over 75% of our students. So when it comes to the first question of a technical attribute, so when it comes to explaining the relationship between Power BI service and Power BI desktop, so how do they complement each other in a business environment, Rakib?
Okay, so we have Power BI desktop and Power BI services, right? These are two different things, but they essentially um, coalesce together and give you a broader experience. So the first thing that you see here on my screen is the Power BI desktop, right? This is where the magic happens. So this is where you create your dashboards, you create your reports, you create everything, and then you publish it, right? The publishing happens to Power BI services, which looks something like this. So this is the exact same report that you just saw, but this is a purely report consumption area for majority of the users. You can do report development here, but the core development happens in the desktop version. So here, if I go to, let's say, one of these reports, I can interact with it, I can play around with it, I can filter it, I can share it with my team members, and I can set up the entire governance aspect of it in the Power BI services, right? So again, just to clarify, the desktop version, which is the desktop application, allows you to create your visuals and create your data analytics, create your calculations, create your transformations, etc. And the Power BI online services, which is this one, allows you to consume that data at the at a secure in a secure and controlled manner, right? It's just not shared with everybody, it's shared with few people. Yeah, that's the difference between Power BI desktop and Power BI services. So we have a question from Enoka. She's asking is, okay, so what happens, or what does she have to do to become an expert after completing the Risker course that we're discussing here, right? Or we're promoting. What do you do? The way to become an expert is putting in your 10,000 hours. I think you've heard of this concept, right? If somebody puts in 10,000 hours to any particular task, they will be considered an expert, right? That's basically it. You put in your 10,000 hours. The way we have structured this course is so that you have a pathway that you need to travel. So that means you have to now start using Power BI on a regular basis. You start promoting Power BI in your day-to-day work, in your organization, and you start your journey, right? If you take courses, that's good. You have a foundation to build on, but you have to build it yourself. You have to do the homework, right, Inoka? So you have to spend that 10,000 hours with Power BI, with problems, and solve them for yourself. You can have the initial guidance from us that will help you to get started, give you a jump start, but ultimately you have to spend that 10,000 hours yourself. I don't think I've completed my 10,000 hours yet, but I'm trying to get there myself too. So I never claim myself an expert either, but I'm on the way to becoming one maybe in the next 10 years, inshallah. So I hope that answered your question, Inoka. How to become an expert in Power BI uh, after this course, if you attended after this course. You have to give in your 10,000 hours. Okay.
Right. So that was a very, I should say that was a very good question that you raised, Inoka. And I can see that Shadia Ali has raised a
Yeah.
question as well. How will Power BI assist in my pathway towards becoming a financial analyst?
So this is very, very important. This is very, very important. So if you have a goal of becoming, let's say, a financial analyst, then you have to be prepared to work with data, right? You will be working with data every single day. You'll be inundated with Excel sheets, you'll be inundated with processes, you'll be inundated with questions, right? And you will, it's a cyclic process. So every financial analyst has tasks they have to perform every single month, every single quarter, every single financial year, every single tax year, every single tax quarter, every single at the end of the each year and everything. So having knowledge with Power BI will help you do all of your tasks faster and better, and then communicate that the results of those tasks very effectively and smartly to your leaders, right? And that in itself is a journey, right? Introducing Power BI, getting sponsorship from your business leaders for Power BI implementation, etc. That in itself is a journey. So that's where this course comes in, right? Um, this allows you to have that conversation first and then start implementing later. So you want to overcome that first hurdle. But of course, as a financial analyst, whether you like it or not, you will be exposed to Power BI in wherever you work, right? If you want to go for the top companies, they already have Power BI implemented, right, in their business, in their finance departments. So when you go there and tell them, look here, I know Power BI already. I know what the governance aspect of it is. I know what the risks of it is. I know what the security parameters of it is. I can help you set it up if you have not set it up already, or I can just jump on board and start using it from day one, right? So it gives you that added advantage. But be aware that every single top company that you will interact with has Power BI embedded in their operation already, right? So it's a bonus, it's a tick mark for you in your journey towards becoming a financial analyst. Yeah. Okay, let's carry on. I hope that cleared your question, Shadia.
So, and just one more thing, it was very interesting, Rakib, that you did mention, did bring it up in terms of, yes, it is indeed something that is a fact, and it's working. Actually, it's personally worked for me as well when it comes to the 10,000 hour rule as well. So, especially it's important, Rakib, as some of the students, there's this misconception going on, Rakib, that Power BI is a subject that can be taught in just a short time, a short span of time. And some students, they tend to ask, I want to do this course, I want to do the Power BI certification immediately as soon as possible. So For such a student, what would your response be, Rocky?
The Power BI certifications, the associate courses, the Power BI developer certifications from Microsoft. Is that it?
Yeah, because the
Yeah.
thing is,
So
Rocky, in terms of the basics, so you need to have, I feel like you need to have a firm grounding, but then there is a fragment of individuals, some students, they think they can, it's a very, that is the speedier process in terms of getting that particular credential, in terms of going straight to the advanced aspect of Power BI. So they want to, they want to quickly do it. Some want it in a span of 2 weeks. So
well, see, as I said before, uh, you can learn Power BI, right? If you go online, if you go on YouTube, you can learn Power BI within a weekend if you want, right? So you'd be spending, let's say, 16 hours to 17 hours with YouTube, cheered the whole time and practicing what they're doing, like replicating what they're doing. You can do that. That's not a problem at all, right? You can actually do that and you can implement that in a very short amount of time. But there are items that are lacking. There are aspects of Power BI that are not there. For example, the governance and the security aspect of it. Um, you can learn it fast, no problem. If you're a good student, you can learn it very fast, and then you can start implementing elsewhere or in your business on your day-to-day life, and you can learn by doing, right? You can do that. That's not a problem at all. And you can even attempt certification exams after this course or even before this course. Your knowledge, see, I don't want to tell you that this is the only way for you to get Power BI knowledge. It's not. It's out there. It's free, right? You can get it from anywhere. You can get it from YouTube. You can get it from Udemy. You can get it from Code Academy, etc. But what we offer, or what I offer, is a more hands-on approach where you can ask questions and get practical feedbacks, right? Uh, that are grounded in real world. That might not be easily available from let's say YouTube or other areas, right? Does that make sense?
yes, of course, Rakib. Because usually what you get on YouTube, it's just information that, let us say I watch a Power BI YouTube and I create a Power BI a YouTube of my own, replicating the information that respective individual said about Power BI. So that's how it goes. So that's YouTube and that's Udemy for you. So
Yeah, that's there. That's there.
however, having hands-on experience, it's a completely different aspect of it, because Rakib, Power BI is not just, having 5 or 6 options. It's a whole plethora of, options
Your
that are.
options are infinite. Basically, your options are infinite. The same problem, right, can be addressed in hundreds of different ways. It's crazy. I remember one of the situations where my colleague Joseph and I were working on the same problem, right? So I actually used like 20 codes, like 20 rows of calculations to do that, make that solution, whereas Joseph used maybe 5 lines of calculations, right? Uh, so he is a far more expertise person than me when it comes to Power BI. So he was able to do it faster and more efficiently. Whereas I completed it, the task, but it was much more, broader. It took more effort. So the knowledge base that you create for yourself will allow you to do things differently, allow you to look at problems differently. Even if your friend is there who's learning it with you, he will look at, or she will look at, a problem differently than you would. It's again very personal, right? It's a tool, right? How you use it depends on you. So yeah, that's what I wanted to emphasize as well. So um, the question that was asked is whether you can take on the certifications after this course. Yes, we will be covering approximately 90% of the syllabus for Power BI Associate. So when you go out of this, you can actually attempt those courses. But I would recommend you study up on those syllabuses particularly, and focus on those content, the syllabus and the content of the certifications, right? We are catering it so that you have certification knowledge, governance knowledge, security knowledge, and Power BI knowledge, right? Sharing and etc. So it's a whole package. It's a mix of beginners and advanced items. So you can attempt the certification courses, but I would recommend not to attempt it blindly. Go back, go to the syllabus, and then slowly look at what you've learned from us and where are the gaps in the syllabus for you in particular. Yeah. But we've covered approximately
Especially,
90% of the Power BI associate and Power BI developer syllabuses.
and especially for those of the students who are thinking that that exam is easy to tackle, let me tell you, it is not.
It's not.
That exam is not an
It
easy
takes a
exam.
time. It takes a bit of time.
Especially, it is not something you can tackle overnight, as some of the, some people think. It is harder, and that is why very few people do pass that exam. But having the firm grounding, the other aspects of it would be much easier as long as you have a firm grounding on the basics of Power BI. That's the most important thing. And as I said, as even Rakib said, on the YouTube, you can get anything, you can study anything you want, but the likelihood of having errors, as Rakib mentioned previously, it's not guaranteed. There is an uncertainty there. It could be wrong. And if it is wrong, and let us say you're doing a project for a business or a company, then it's going to be a big problem. So coming to the next question, when it comes to the next question, so how does Power BI, let's say, okay, if I'm putting the question another way, how can Power BI's desktop data modeling capability differ from the traditional tools? Let's say, what advantages does it offer?
Okay, so data modeling, if you're not an IT professional, is something that will be completely new to you, right? So what we call data modeling is something that looks like this. So let me just zoom in a little bit.
I
So
hope
this is
I hope this doesn't look simple to the students. For those of them that think
it
it's
will be a bit confusing. But this is what we call a data model, right? Where you have multiple sets of data that interact with each other, that relate to each other. So we would basically look at, if you take HR for example, you have the full list of employees, right? Their IDs, their email addresses, their names, their nationalities, their, let's say, their years of experience, their date of birth, etc. But whenever you're sharing that data with someone, you do not have the salaries, their salary pay grades, their benefits, etc. there, right? Why? Because that is a separate data set. That is a separate data set. You do not, if you look at the salary information, if you're part of HR, they always keep the salary information separate. But how do they know whose salary is what is by that ID, right? The employee ID or a secret code that they have, a secret ID that they have that is not easily present in the front end, right? That's how you do that to maintain confidentiality. So how do you relate these two is using a primary column like this. So for example, if I hover over this, you'll see that this database, these two data sets, the database and data outlet. So these are two data tables and they are linked using the owner column. So if you refer to these two, they're linked by the owner column, right? Just like how your salary information and your general information is linked using an ID column, right? An ID information that uniquely identifies you from one table and then uniquely identifies you in the other table. That is the primary concept of data modeling, right? Where you have multiple isolated sets of data that are identified and linked to each other via a single column, right? Same column in both those tables. Now, from a Power BI standpoint or a calculation standpoint, you will have multiple data sets in your business. If you're like, for example, I worked in garments industries, right? So in the garments industry, um, I had to implement a complete uh, efficiency and production tracking system in the business, right? So what did I have to deal with? I had, number one, the planning information from the planning team, right? Where each garment is defined, right, by size, color, style, brand, and also, what was the other one? Brand and delivery. So where it was going to be delivered, right? All of these were different. And each of these items, based on size, everything, had a code, had an ID, right? That ID we took and mapped it to the floor. So for example, whatever was coming out of, let's say, the if you take sweater, for example, whatever was coming out from the knitting machines at the ground floor was tagged with that ID, right? These belong to this product, so it's tagged. That product went to the sewing floor, where it again got counted based on that tag and based on that ID. Then it went to washing. It was again counted based on that tag, based on that ID. So that ID is what is being recorded and what the data is being updated against. That then updated the planning information and the production information. So planning knew that they are planning, let's say, 10 sweaters today for this size, this garment, this brand, this color, this delivery point, and they are, or this order, and they have completed, let's say, 90 of it. So their efficiency is 90% for that day. That's what we did, right? But we always updated information against a single point, which is that ID. And that ID ties, let's say, various different data points or data tables across the business. Finance, when they receive that ID, they would see money. Planning, when they receive that ID, they would see quantity and efficiency. HR, when they see that ID and the quantity associated with it, would see incentive, right, for that particular line of workers or employees, right, who are doing the sewing, who are doing the knitting operations, etc. So one ID allows for various different insights for various different people to be received, right? Logistics would see that ID, the quantity that has been built, and they can plan ahead for their delivery, right? Packing departments or inventory or storage departments or stores can see that, okay, this ID has 90 garments today, it had 80 garments tomorrow. I can see the trend. I'm expecting approximately 10,000 garments to be present in my store by next Tuesday, right? I have to prepare that space. Do I have that space? They can plan ahead. So that's what data modeling does. You have one point of connection between all of these data sets, right, in your business, and you update against that ID, not against those individual tables. Does that make sense? It's a bit complex to understand, but when you go through that's what's happening here. So you can see the relationships between each table established. You can see the relationships, interrelationships between each table. And that's what gives the cohesive output that we're getting from all of these different data sets. Does that make sense? It's a bit technical at this point, but that's what it is. You want to, have one point of data where you're updating, and that point then disseminates across everywhere else. I hope that's clear.
I do understand this is a bit of a challenge considering the time constraint, because to explain this is a bit of a really, it's a bit of it's something that you nearly need to get firm grounding on. And that is why our training would indeed equip you especially in terms of getting all of these clear to you in a way that you can understand without a shadow of a doubt. Unlike, other, sources, especially YouTube videos, they will definitely not teach you. They will teach just the general aspect of it, just adding, the sauce onto the plate, but they would not go into depth in this context to the length of explaining at such a level as Rakib does. So Rakib, thanks very much once again. I do understand there's a time constraint here, but it is clear, especially for those who did understand it. So when it comes to, the data transformation tools that you get in Power BI, so how can they be used to, how do I say, clean and prepare data for accurate reporting?
That's a very good question. Let me try to answer that. If I go to, let's say, Power Query, right? And go to transform data. So whoever here has used, let's say, Power Query in Excel knows what it is, right? They can easily recognize it anywhere. And you can also recognize from Power Query, you can also recognize, just one second, let me just reposition my window. Just one second, yeah, there it is. So as I was saying, so here, this is called Power Query, right? The purpose of Power Query is to allow you to actually start, transforming and cleaning your data. All of the transformations that are possible are mentioned here, right? So you can change the type of data that you're recognizing. So for example, data, excuse me. So you have, let's say it says data. So this, in this context, it means date, right? Anno means year, mes means month. So this is again from one of my clients back in Angola. And basically I can change the type of data. That's one kind of transformation, right? That you can do in Power Query. Then I can actually pivot and unpivot columns. I can convert to lists. I can sum. I can clean up. I can replace values. I can establish business rules, logics. I can create conditional columns that allow the business, the system to be reactive. I can create measures that help me understand the data better, and I can also clean up dirty data. So when I say dirty data, that means data that's not in a particular flat structure. So for example, when I say flat structure, what do I mean? For example, here it's date and time data. So anything that is not date and time will result in an error, right? This is number data. So this is 2020, or this is 2024, 2019, etc. But if I add, let's say, ABC to it, that means that's an error in that structure. So in data analytics, every single column has to have its unique type of data. So if it's text, right? You cannot have, let's say, HTML or coding data here. You cannot have special characters here, right? If it's number, it's only going to be number, right? And it's analyzed as number. If it's going to be, let's say, geographic location, latitude and longitude, it has to follow that pattern, and the system will tell you if there is an error in the system. So in the data itself. So that's what the cleanup is all about. Taking it from a structure that is not easily interactable with and converting it into a structure that's easy to interact with, easy to analyze and clean, right? Zero errors, zero mismatches in data type, um, zero mixes in terms of values, right? Wrong data is wrong data there. That's also very, very important to understand, that you cannot have wrong data there. How do you identify wrong data? You need a reference point, right? For example, if your business has been running for 5 years, but you're like the last 5 years from 2024 to, let's say, 2019, and then you see data coming from 2015, then that's an error. You have to take that out. So you have to include, exclude, etc. Right? That's pretty much it. So you can do all of that here in Power Query, or you can do it in Power BI in either level.
Thank you very much once again, Rakib, for that insightful demonstration, and it's quite complex. I see that you have some. How do you manage to keep all these in, I don't know, in one desktop? Those files look huge.
Yeah, these are quite huge. If I go into any one of these, I should have a working model here somewhere. If I remember, whenever I go into like one of these freelancing, I have like a file for freelancing. So these are all of my projects. So it becomes very difficult sometimes to manage the data here, but it's doable. It's doable. It's not a problem. I can find it.
I don't know how you manage it personally, Rakib, because I can't.
Is what it is.
I'll be frank, I can't. But again, it's really interesting, Rakib. And yeah, of course. So I can tell, as you know, our students definitely you're in safe hands in terms of doing. So I can see that most of these questions are stemming from students who are wanting to make sure in terms of choosing the right one, in terms of getting trained by the proper person, the proper individual, which I completely understand because in this day and age, you get plenty of individuals who just replicate information, as I said earlier. And I hope that this ascertains to all of you all as to who the resource person is and what this resource person is capable of. So coming to the next question, when it comes okay, so this is a bit of an advanced question that has been raised by most of the students. So what are the most effective and efficient ways to use DAX functions in Power BI desktop for complex data analysis?
That's a very, very good question. I think this is the perfect file to actually demonstrate that. So if you look at these measures over here, right? If I open up these files, so don't worry, I have full approval from my client to actually demonstrate these. Let me see. I'll close this one. This is not the right data set to show it in. This one as well. Yeah, here. So for example, let me expand all of it, right? I'll expand all of it. So these are all measures. So if you see on the right-hand side, these are called measures, right? And each one of these measures has a calculation built into it. So you can see that there are variables that are being used, calculations that are being performed at various levels, right? And each one is performing a very, very complex calculation, right? And they each have a specific purpose that they're serving within the report. If you have, let's say, measures that do not serve a purpose, better to remove them. And all of the measures are stored here, but there are also measures down here. So if I go to database, let me see, where is it? Yeah, a lot of calculations are here. So you have calculated columns as well. So you have calculated columns here that are being used, and also you have measures that are being used, right, based off of those calculated columns. Now, why am I showing you this one in particular is because, let me see, where is it? There is one calculation that's annoying, very, very annoying. That took me about 2 weeks to figure out how to do it. Looking for that. Yes, no. WD? I think it was ND. So just give me a second. Let me just find that particular calculation that I want to show. It's been a while. SP share HS. Yes. Yes, there it is. So this is what I was looking for. So you see, if you okay, this is going to be difficult to explain. Okay, so what I am doing in this calculation is basically I'm performing a divide function, right? Ultimately, I'm dividing one data by another. However, the context of that data, right? That context of that data is different than the context that you have in your data set that is available, right? So what the business did for their calculation is they actually created a pivot table, right? A separate summarized pivot table that does not match the context of the table that they're using, the primary, like the database, right? So what I had to do is I had to create a unique table. So this function right here creates a very unique table that is exactly the same as their pivot table, summarizing data in a way that is relevant to the business, right? To me, it initially seemed like it's completely wrong. I said, "Why are you doing that? Why aren't you just directly calculating it from the data set? Isn't it better?" They said, "No. For them, that is how they review it. So for them, that reality had to be replicated from Excel to Power BI. So in order to do that, I had to create first a divide function and then use the sum x function. The sum x function allows you to sum inside a virtual table, right? So this is that virtual table. The summarize function is allowing me to create that virtual table, and then I'm summing that sum of sales column from that virtual table, which is this one, sum of sales column, right? Then I'm dividing that virtual value with another virtual table that is different. So they have two different Power Pivot Power Pivot tables that are interacting with each other. So in order to get the result, I had to create two different virtual tables inside the sum function and then divide both of the outcomes. And these outcomes now had to be relevant or relative to each of those categories, or related to each of those categories, so that the right value goes in the right category, right? So this took me about 1.5 weeks to figure out and implement, right? So for me, this was the easiest way of doing it. For somebody who was better, or for me, this was 3 years ago that I did this, like 3-4 years ago. The person that I am now, I would do this completely differently. I would actually create that table not as a virtual table, but as a real table, so that the business can actually go there and check it. Right now, how it is, the business can't validate this data. Although they're getting the right data, this is not the right way of doing it. I'm owning to my own flaws when I was there at that time, right? And I've also proposed now back to the business, even now, like I think we had this conversation last month. Let's re-look at how I did this project. Can we re-look at it and improve it further? I've learned new things. Become better. I know more about Power BI than I did 3 years ago. Let me take a look at this project and make it so that it's auditable. Somebody can come in and check the calculations. Right now, you can't check the calculation. Although they're right, we've validated that, but they can't check it. So the more you learn, the more you know. You know, that's the reality of it. So I would never say that there's a best way of using DAX. It's just the context of the problem that you have. Based on that, you can be flexible in how you want to use it. And again, the level of knowledge you have is what's important. So the context of the problem and the level of knowledge you have, combine it, however you can manage it, that's good, right? But remember, everything that you do should be validatable, not only at the output level, but at each level, at each calculation level. It should be easy to check whether the calculations are correct, and it should be auditable, right? So somebody else other than you can just touch it and see, oh, okay, this is how he did it. It's very easy, right? So you always show you're working. That's what I really miss about, or I was surprised about. After I came into a professional environment, especially with data, is that we should always show our working, right? At every level. That way, we're safe. Even if there is a mistake, we're able to identify it. If I'm not able to identify it, my colleague is able to identify it, or the business user is able to identify it. So always show your working, right? Whenever you can. Here, I've just given them the result directly. I should have shown the working. Does that make sense?
Yes, Rocky.
It's a bit of a roundabout way of answering it, that what's the best way of using DAX, but hey, it depends on how much you know, what the context of the problem is, and what is your experience level. That's the best way of using it for now. But the way you should adhere to, or the way you should aspire to, is show your work. Show your work, right? So that people can check it, you can check it, and you're safe from blunder and mistakes. Yeah.
It's very interesting, Rakib, in terms of what you just demonstrated. And that gets, I'm sure the other students would be thinking the same as well, for those who did understand. So that brings me to another question, Rakib. So in what scenarios would you recommend using live connections versus imported data in Power BI?
So this is a very important thing. So what's imported data and what's live data, right? So okay, this is going to be difficult. Um, so imported data is basically a copy of the exact data in your database in Power BI. So you can do anything that you want with that data, right? It's an imported copy. So if you have, let's say, a million rows over there, not a million rows will be pulled in, maybe uh, 500,000 or 6,000 rows will be pulled in to Power BI for you to analyze and do your calculations. So once you do your calculations, you can then publish it to Power BI services where that where that imported connection will be there, and you can set a scheduled refresh to it. So an imported connection is a collection of data is basically the exact copy of the data that you have in your database, and you can do anything that you want with it. You can calculate it, you can transform it, you can delete, replace, you can do pretty much anything that you want with it, right? And then when you publish it, you have to schedule the refreshes, so it does not refresh on its own. You do not have the most recent available data. You have only a snapshot of, let's say, 30 minutes, depending on the how you start, how you refresh it. It can be refreshed every day to every 30 minutes, right? That's the range. So you may have the most current scenario in the last 30 minutes. That's what imported data is. However, a live connection is where you have a direct link to the data. That means whatever the most recent version of the data is at any given time, you have that version, right? However, the limitation of this is that you cannot do many transformations on it. You cannot do many calculations on it. You can do some basic calculation, but remember, all of those calculations and changes result in conversion time, right? So in real time or direct connections, you do not have flexibility in transforming or calculations, right? So the data that you're bringing in has to be clean, completely perfect. Otherwise, do not go for live connections. Go for imported one, clean it, perfect it, and then upload. So the live connection gives you the most recent updated value. So if you make a changes now, it will reflect everywhere now, right? It won't wait for next 30 minutes or next 40 minutes. It will reflect immediately. That's what a live connection is. Live connections are only preferred or only recommended when you have, number one, very, very clean data and you're sure that their data is correct. There's not going to be any problems with it, and that data is very well maintained. That's number one. And number two is when you need live connections for real time response, right? So where do we need live connections? For emergencies, right? If something has gone wrong, you have to respond to it within matter of seconds. That's when you need live connections. For example, medical emergencies in hospitals. Majority of the heart rates and monitors that you see on critical patients are live data connections. So not only are you seeing it on the screens, you're seeing it offline as well, online somewhere else, in front of the doctors or in their chambers, etc. And it's all connected. So that's live data, right? All the data is connected and going live immediately. um, some businesses will treat a certain process as very, very hypercritical, where they want to see the live changes happening. That's when you use live data. But again, remember, it has to be very clean and very well maintained data for you to do that, right? But other than that, unless it's a critical operation and business wants 24/7 eye on it, and they want to react to it 24/7 at even the slightest margins, that's when you want live data. Other than that, it's not required, right? Other than that, imported data is fine because you have the most recent view just 30 minutes ago, right? So from here, if I, let's say, schedule at 6 and 6:30, every refresh every half hour at 6 p.m., 6:30 p.m., 7 p.m., 7:30, and you're at 7:15, you know that this data is from 7 p.m., right? So it's just 15 minutes ago. That's the latest version of the data 15 minutes ago, like that. So it's not much difference, but it's the live data is used in critical operations that need you to react immediately, right? It's very sensitive, very critical operation. All right, I hope that's clear.
Yes, indeed, Rakib. Thank you very much for shedding some light on that. I do hope the students have understood. As I understood, so
Guys,
obviously,
nobody's asking any questions. Like I'm
exactly.
surprised. Nobody's asking any
So before we
questions.
progress
You
on to the
should.
next question, please do voice out any questions that you all might have, because And personally, I'm not going to take on any question that we will be taking after this session when the resource person is right here in front of you, where you can openly ask any questions, any clarifications, because more than me, he is definitely the better person who can answer any question that you may have. So again, before we move on, before we progress on to the next question, this for those of our students who aren't aware, we'll be giving away an exclusive participation certificate for those of you who do stay on until the final moments, until this session is over, because we would know that you are really interested in terms of gaining knowledge and as a small token of saying thank you to those students. Okay, so coming to the next question, Raki, this is yet another. Okay, this is yet another important question that most of our students have raised. So this is something to do with the strategies that can be employed. So what are the strategies that can be employed to optimize the performance of Power BI reports and dashboards?
Say it again. Sorry.
Yeah, so what strategies can be employed to optimize the performance of Power BI reports and dashboards?
Okay. So when we say optimize, right, what does it mean? If you want to consider the most simple way of thinking about it, optimization is achieved when you can have a live connection. That means the data is completely clean, all the data is correct, and all the data is maintained. So the most optimized data is the data with which you can have a live connection and you can demo it live or you can demonstrate it live, right? That's called optimization in its most simple terms. However, if you think about it from a business standpoint, they don't really care about that performance, how fast the report is loading, how fast the data is coming to you, as long as they can see the data. So optimized for the business means having the right data at the right time available for them to review. That's optimized. And optimized for the technical expert is that the data can be very, very fast. That means live. You can achieve optimization in two ways. So for example, as I was saying before, again, going back to this example, where I'm creating a virtual table and then calculating against that virtual table and not showing my work, the optimization for me in this scenario is to have those virtual tables converted into actual tables, right? And then from there, I can view my work. So that's one layer of optimization that I prefer. Then from there, I can start drawing insights. So I can make that a live table, right? Another way of optimization for me on this scenario would be to have the calculations inside or another table, right? Another virtual table that I can create and demonstrate to the business. So that's another layer of optimization. Or I can push all of these calculations to the database layer. So I have no calculations existing in the Power BI side. So all of these calculations that you see here are on Power BI, right? I can actually take these calculations and push them to the database so that all of the calculation happens at the database and I just get the final output, which is basically the final output is basically this number right here. Well, let me show you. We were at HS, right? Yeah. So the final output is just basically this percentage number, right? I want this percentage number to be available on the database layer. So that's another layer of optimization where you have no calculations on Power BI side. So no calculations, no calculated columns, nothing. There is just columns. So no measures, nothing. That is another layer of optimization. And that's what we should be aiming for, that there's no calculation happening on Power BI. All of the calculations are happening at the database layer. You can create the calculation here, and then you can communicate with your database manager or your database guy, who you can relay these calculations to. Look here, this is the calculation I want, perform it in the database layer. I will remove this calculation from Power BI. That's another sort of optimization, right? Where you're pushing the load or the work of calculation and data cleanup to the database, which is much faster. Database can do it much faster than Power BI. So you want to push all of these calculations back to Power BI if you back to the database if you can. So that's another layer of optimization, right? So optimization in this scenario is relative to one, the business, to you, the developer, and overall performance. Considering overall performance and what optimization looks like, it may vary. But just to summarize again, number one, best optimized data is data that is live. Number two, you want to have as small number of calculations on Power BI as you possibly can. You want to push all calculations to the database layer. That's the best optimization feature. And you want to have very limited number of calculations on top of Power BI. So as you can see, I did all of this 3-4 years ago. I did not know that. So I put all of my calculations here. So that makes the entire system slow. Every time it refreshes, right, it takes 5-10 minutes. Why? Because once it brings the data from the database, it's now performing all of those calculations, all of those transformations, and creating data for you. You don't want the Power BI to do that. You want all of that to be done in the database. Yeah. So that's another layer of optimization, how you can improve performance and usability of the system. So yeah.
That was a great answer, Rakib. Thank you very much. So I do understand these are a bit of some technicality. There is a level of technicality, but I believe our students do understand it, at least to a certain level. So again, thanks very much, Rakib, for that insightful demonstration. So our next question is,
Right.
Okay, so this is a good one. What are the key factors to consider when designing Power BI reports for executive level decision making?
What are the key factors to consider when developing Power BI reports for executive level decision making? So do we have any executives in the group here, in the list here? Do we have like executives and senior executives, right, who are decision makers in their respective firms? Do we have someone who's senior? Can they chime in? I think this would be a perfect time for you to add value to the question.
Exactly. Please
Guys,
do. Please do.
Raise your voice if you have somebody who's at that level, somebody who's senior in the organization and makes a lot of decisions. Guys, anyone that can support me here?
If you're too shy to speak up, you might as well raise a hand. There is a hand icon, so you can click on that. So just so that we have an indication that there is a fragment in executives here.
Okay. So why I ask is basically very simple. An executive or a senior executive has very little time, right? They will not make business decisions based on guts alone, right? They would not say, oh, okay, I feel like this today, I will take this decision. They will ask their colleagues for information. So for example, if it's a very financially significant information, they would go to the CFOs that, okay, CFO, tell me what is the impact of, let's say, XYZ. I have three options. What is the impact of option one? What is the impact of option two? And what is the impact of option three? So, right, they will ask that question. Then it's the CFO's responsibility to give that feedback. So these are routine questions that are asked, right, by the senior executives, right? That, okay, what is the impact? So whenever you're creating reports for senior executives, take into consideration three things. One, they don't have much time, right? They will not go through a 10-page report to actually find out what is wrong. They want it at the top of the screen that, okay, my production is, again, going back to a very simple example of manufacturing, my production plan was X, my production achieved is Y. What is the difference? And am I within a very a comfortable variance, or am I in a variance that is dangerous for me, right? That will ultimately result in loss of business value, right? So that's something that they want to see like that. So you want the most important details at the top of the screen in numbers, right? Numbers are very critical. You can't have text with You can't have too much text. Some might prefer text, but you can't have too much text with senior executives. They need to be able to react. Don't need to investigate the report one step further after you've generated it. You know what I mean? They're not investigators. They're decision makers. You need to enable them to make decisions, right, with the right parameters and right numbers. So always focus on the numbers first. So the top half of your report should all be numbers. How many, what you were supposed to do, what you have achieved. So plan versus actual, what is the variance? And then if plan versus actual and variance is there, what is the recovery, right? If let's say variance is above a certain marker, what needs to be happen? What does he need to do if that happens, right? So for example, you want to highlight that, okay, it has gone beyond level one. So if it has gone beyond level one, the manager has to respond. It's an example. If it's gone beyond level two, the general manager has to respond. If it's beyond level three, then the CFO, CEO, or another executive now has to get involved. So it's a matter of allowing for quick action based on performance. That's what they really look for, right? What action do they have to take? They don't read reports to just read reports. They read reports to take action. Does that make sense? Even like, do we have managers or general managers here who can have a conversation with me regarding this?
But it does make sense to me. I hope
So
we do have someone who can.
who can add value to the question from their own experiences. But ultimately, that's what it boils down to. Number one, the senior executives or supervisors or senior management staff need to make decisions, and they need numbers to make decisions, right? And they should be informed of when they should jump in. They should not be pushed to investigate further. They should have everything at their fingerprint. Yeah.
Okay,
All
so
right.
then we
Carry on.
don't have any senior executives, neither do we have any managers. So I assume then all of these are directors.
Okay.
Just
Anyway,
kidding.
let's
So
move on to the next
anyway,
question.
it's about speaking up. So I am 100% sure there are at least a few senior executives. So this piece of information is going to be helpful for you. So you would be missing out on vital information that might be definitely helpful for you in terms of executing the same in your capacity as a senior executive. So you would be missing out on an important piece of information. So this is the reason we are saying to please voice out your concern, and because you never know, you'll be getting a valuable piece of information or insight. So coming to the next question, without delaying it any further, Rakib. So let's get straight to it, as we have still a few more to tackle. Yeah, few more to tackle. So when it comes to the next question, how can Power BI's artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities be leveraged for predictive analytics?
Okay, this is a good one. So Power BI is capable of three types of machine learning and AI features, right? The number one is regression forecasting. So if you provide it a set of data, it learns the trends, right, on its own. It learns it on its own, and then it can forecast for you the next 2 months, next 3 months of what your business would look like, right? That's one way of putting it. The other way of the way it works, again, out of the three, is something called classification, right? So if you provide this, you can actually implement it in terms of, if you have, let's say, sales leads, right? And you have record of sales leads performance from, let's say, the past 2 years. So you have a list of leads and how they have performed for the last 2 years. You can actually feed it to the system, and it will actually predict for you what your future leads will look like. So if you have a set of leads that you have completed, they may have panned out as successes and failures and pending, on hold, or whatever. These are classifications that you have experienced yourself. You teach it to the system, and future leads, it can start predicting for you whether the next lead that you're going to get or the next lead that you have on your system is going to pan out as a sale or it's going to be a bust, right? That's classification if you teach the system that. The third one that it does is sentiment analysis. So sentiment analysis, if you have, let's say, a huge amount of survey data where people have actually commented their feedback, you can feed it to the system, right? And it can actually tell you what the sentiment of each of those users are expressing. If they're satisfied, if they're happy, if they're angry, if they're disappointed, it can actually rate the sentiment from 0 being the worst, if they're really angry with you, and 1 being very, very happy with you, right? Approval, completely approving of you. So you can actually use these 3 systems in various different ways. Power BI has added something new recently. Last year, July, last year, not last year, July, this year, July actually, is something called Copilot. And what Copilot is capable of is learning. It's embedded with Chat GPT 4. So it learns from you, and as it's growing, the AI functionality and machine learning features are expected to expand even further, right? With chatbots coming into, like, for example, if I click on Copilot here, I can actually start asking information regarding the workspace or the data that I have available, and it will give me that feedback. So if I ask it, let's say, what is the worst selling product of 2024 quarter one, it will give me the worst selling product of 2024 quarter one, right? That's how smart AI is becoming in terms of handling your data, predicting your future, classifying your leads, and telling you how happy your customers are with you. Right? That's the entire repertoire of AI, machine learning, and Copilot features that are available right now. There are bigger and better things coming up in the pipeline for 2025 and 2026, which I'm really looking forward to.
It's a very insightful demonstration, Rakib. Thanks once again. So I hope our students have got the gist of it, have got a key insight on this aspect of it as well. So the next question would be, how does Power BI workspace management enhance collaboration and governance across an organization?
Can you repeat that question one more time?
Yeah, sure, of course. So how can Power BI, or how does Power BI workspace management enhance collaboration and governance across an organization?
Okay, so if we're talking about workspaces, let's go to workspaces, right? So each workspace has or serves a different purpose, right? So whenever you're creating a workspace, if you create a premium workspace, you can add people to that workspace, add specific data relevant to that team, a group of people that you're adding to that workspace, and you can start analyzing and creating your data models, your data flows inside that workspace. So the purpose of that workspace is put up a boundary between the people that need to be in there and the people that don't need to be in there. That's the first part of the workspace. The workspace actually allows you to start sharing data, right? So unless you have a premium workspace, you cannot share reports, you cannot work on anything, right? So it gives you your sandbox where you can play, you can work, and you can implement and interact with business users. Now, generally what we do is we have a development workspace, where we're doing all sorts of development, creating data flows, creating work effects, etc., etc. So everything that we do happens in that workspace. Then we have the testing workspace, right? Let's Then we have the testing workspaces where we basically export all of the work we have done in development, put it into the testing workspace, and then from that testing workspace, we share it with the business users to test, right? If once they have approved that this is meeting their standard, we move it to the production workspace where no development happens, no changes happen. It's a fixed system, and remains as such so that it's stable and it does not have any problems or issues that are unforeseen. So you do all of your mess in the development workspace, you do a clean testing version in the testing workspace, and you do the cleanest version and a permanent version in the production workspace. So that's how you manage your workspaces in Power BI, right? And when you're talking about sharing and collaboration, you only share reports from testing to a limited number of people, 5 or 6 or 7, limited business stakeholders. And in production, you share with everyone that needs to see that information, right? Another part of this is row level security. This is a bit advanced, but you can actually implement row level security inside your reports so that if I log in, I can see only information filtered to what is relevant for me. And if, let's say, Daniel logs in, then Daniel will see information that is only relevant to him. So the workspace allows you to define that row level security as well. So you have development workspace where you make your mess, do your thing. You have the UAT workspace or the testing workspace where the testing happens. And then you have your production workspace where the real live production and real work happens. I hope that's clear. Real sharing and collaboration happens. Sorry, in production, real sharing and collaboration, not development happens. No development happens in production.
Yes, indeed, Rakib, that was crystal clear. I hope it was the same for the rest of the students as well. So I'm assuming all the other students have got a clear understanding of it, especially as we are not getting any responses from you guys. So moving on to the next question. So now, as you already had
I
as you
think
previously
we'll take like
demonstrated,
2-3 more questions, Daniel, and call
exactly.
it a day.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
guys, please speak up. We can take more questions if you're there. But
Exactly.
these are
Because
just
it is becoming a
yeah,
dead room. I feel it's
yeah.
becoming a dead room personally.
It's just me talking to Daniel and you guys listening. Come on, you guys have to talk now.
So I'm going to we will be handpicking one of you. So if no one is talking, so Inoka Nandani, do you have any questions that you would like to clarify? Shadia Ali, any questions?
I'm okay with the content. Thank you.
Right, perfect, Inoka. So what about Shadia Ali? Any questions that you would like to clarify?
Yes, I would like to know how this Power BI will assist in the predictive part in finance.
Okay, very
Future
good actually.
prediction.
Yes, let me see if I have forecasted sample data available. Yes, I do have that available.
And trend
So,
analysis.
very
Sorry,
good
come
one.
again, Shadia. Hello.
So here I have a regression report for AI Builder. So sales value forecasting, right? So I have a demo here. No, not this one. Sorry, this is training details. See, where is it? Where is it? I have it here somewhere. Follow along class. The demo. DHET. That's not it. Yeah, this one. Forecast with data samples. No, not this one. No, I have it here somewhere. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Okay, so the question you've asked is how would it help in data forecasting and trend analysis, right? So as I mentioned before, we have systems available. Just go. Let me just try and find it. I have it here somewhere. Just give me 1 second. Demo files. I wanted to show you. I can tell you, but I really wanted to show you. Wait, let me just see if I can find it. Demo. Yeah, I'm not able to find it just now. Business process. Unfortunately, I'm unable to find that document just yet. Power BI example. Yeah, unable. I can't find that report just yet, but let me just tell you about it. So what it can do is you can do trend analysis in a couple of ways, right? So let me just go back to this one, go here, and you can actually, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? So here. So for example, in terms of trend analysis, what do we do? The first thing that we need is a date, right? So we need some sort of a date. We will put, let's say, this date here. I'm just showing you something practical. This date here, and I will add a sales. Yeah, I'll add sales data here as well. So, okay, data, but it's getting only a single set of data. X-axis, Y-axis, so this won't work. Okay, month year, month year, month year too. So where is it? Where is it? 1 second. Let me see if I can show it to you practically. That would be the best, I think. Yeah, year month. Let me see. So, okay, this one only has April data. No? Okay, let me find the other one. This one should have more data. Save. So I'm just trying to find the right data set for you so that we can actually show you how it works. See, yes, this one should have the right data. Okay, so what I was saying is we need, first of all, we need a date. I'll put month year here. So I'll go to database. I'll go at the bottom. I have year month, right? So this is basically a simple table, and I will add a line chart here. So this is a line chart that I'm adding. And then I would add sales data. So I will now add sales, right? So I've added sales. So this is my trend for sales and data. So let me just do something. Let me make it, let me remove the default. So I'll add the data labels here. I will reset it to default. Oh, sorry. I'll add the data labels here, make the data label colors white. Uh, color white. So here, these are the data labels, and I will also change the y-axis colors to white as well, so that we can properly utilize the data. Otherwise, it's getting a bit difficult to see, right? So I'll change the title color to white as well, so we see the title color, and then I will add values here, column, and I will add the color here. So now you see, this is very important. So this feature right here is what your question was about, Shadia. So you have something called analysis table, right? So this is a visual of all of my performances from October 2022 to July 2022. And then you have trend lines. So I can now add a trend line. I can see, okay, this is the trend line going forward. Then I can add constants that I've calculated. I can add minimum, maximum line. So I've added a minimum line. So this is my minimum line. This is my maximum line. This is my average line. I can add an average line. It will automatically calculate it for me. I can add a median line. So you can see the median line is lower than the average line. And then this is the final question that you had, right? Forecasting. So how far do I want it to forecast? Do I want it to forecast 10 months? Or do I want it to forecast, let's say, 2 months? Asking it to forecast 10 months in the future is very, very risky because it creates a massive window of deviation, right? Because you have a massive window of deviation. See that? So this tells you your upper window and this tells you your lower window, right? And based on how much it has differed in the last in the data that is available, it's telling you that you're expecting a flat forecast, right? You're expecting a flat forecast going forward because you started off at the bottom, you hit a very high peak, and you're going to stabilize. You're not going to get higher than this, right? So you can actually have it forecast right from the visual itself, right? And you can also increase the seasonality. So if you increase the seasonality to 0.4, you'll see that it's giving you more seasonal seasonal changes. It's more reactive to seasonal changes. If I make it, let's say 10, if I make it, let's say 10 and apply, you will see much more seasonality coming in. So it's looking very similar to the data that was provided, right? That's what's going to happen. You can change a lot of things, right? You can make the confidence level lower. So I can make a confidence level of, let's say, 75% confidence interval. That will allow this to, change a bit more. I can do it in terms of days, right? So if the units are days, then it will actually forecast 10 days into the future, or let's say 30 days into the future, etc. Let me just increase the confidence level. I think it's not accepting a confidence level of 75. Let's do 90. So I've asked it to do a confidence level of 90, and it's now, giving me a little bit more of a bandwidth. So you can actually create forecasts for yourself based on what data you have available, how you want to do it. You can use this tool right here directly, or you can use the AI features that we have. AI training and modeling is a bit more accurate than this one, but it'll still give you a good number of information that you need. Shadia, I hope I was able to
Yes,
clarify
I
that.
want to check. So you will be teaching all this in this program, is it?
Oh yeah. We'll be going through all of this. How to use the
Right.
machine learning, how to use, let's say, the regression in forecasting, and this forecasting here. What are the factors that are involved? All of these.
So if I'm not familiar with coding, or not a very high techy or anything, will I be able to manage?
Did you see me use any codes on this one, by the way?
No.
So that's what we want to promote. So the purpose of Power BI is to allow you to drag and drop elements and use them as you see fit, right? And customize your own experience. Of course, there's a bit of calculations that are required. So as I was showing here before, a bit of calculations is required. For example, creating sum, average, etc. Right? But I'll be teaching you how to do that. But again, you have to practice, Shadia. Yeah, whatever you learn from me, if you go out of the class and then not practice it for a month or so, you'll forget it. Power BI is not like swimming or cycling. You don't learn it once and remember it for the rest of your life. It's not like that. If you have to practice, it's like being a doctor or something like that. Medicine, you have to practice it for you to remember it. Okay, the areas that are covered in this course are basically, we'll go through what the desktop app is capable of. We will also go through what Power BI services is capable of, the online version of the application. We will go through the machine learning, the AI aspect of Power BI, which is the most hyped feature coming up in the next 2 years. It'll be all AI based, so you can actually talk to Power BI and it will create calculations for you. Right, that's what we want to do in the future as well, and that's what we'll focus on as well. And also we will look at the data sharing, governance, licensing costs as well, and how these licenses impact your day-to-day operation and costs, right? So we'll go through all of these items in this course: the administrative setup, desktop development, Power BI services, sharing, and other capabilities as well, right? Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, of course, Rakib. It's a really insightful session, I should say.
We'll go through what the desktop app.
Thank you very much once again for tuning in for this exclusive session. And hopefully we'll be seeing you all in the next session, which would be the start of the course. And if there are any further clarifications, again, as I said, you could always feel free to reach out to us anytime.